Lesson 6. What are the social and economic challenges of London? Despite London being described as one of the only two global cities in the whole world, and despite it being a very important city with regards to not only the local economy of the United Kingdom, but to the rest of the world as well, and despite the diversity in culture and the relative abundance of business opportunities, London still has its challenges and difficulties in both economic and social situations. Problems that may be largely observable at present include inequalities in housing, education, health, and employment. Inequality in many aspects is a rampant problem in London. In a report released by John Hill upon his inquiry in 2010, it was revealed that the richest tenth of Londoners had recourse each to at least 270 times the wealth of the poorest tenth of Londoners. The very worst off of that richest tenth held at least £1 million in assets. Usually this included the value of their property and their future pension rights. The various multi-aspect inequalities of the average Londoner should also be tackled later on. Housing inequalities. One of the suspected reasons behind housing inequalities in London is the high cost of owning a home. A London home at present would cost 12 times the median salary of those who live there. Formerly, it was suspected that housing supply was not meeting demand, and overly onerous planning restrictions caused this situation, but evidence to justify this is correct has been deemed insufficient. Growing levels of economic inequality are now increasingly associated with many damaging social and economic outcomes, including low social mobility and even the financial crisis. The housing situation in England as a whole is relatively troubled. However, in the City of London, the inequality issues are even worse, as more people have been found to rent privately rather than own a property outright or regularly pay a mortgage. The rate which average tenants pay for rent is about £281 a week, which is roughly 50% of average net pay for a worker in London receives. The high costs are not justified by the quality of rented spaces, unfortunately, as rented housing is often substandard quality, lacking security, and often temporary, which is demonstrated by the fact that more than 33% of tenants have transferred residency in the past year. On the other hand, only 4.8% of house owners in London are owner-occupiers. Meanwhile, government action has been taken to alleviate this problem with the offering of housing benefits. The proportion of private tenants in employment who have received additional benefits has doubled in the past 5 years, from 7% to 14%. Education inequalities. One of the other forms of inequality that continues to be a problem in the City of London is the inequality of education. One of the most crucial tests that a secondary student in England undergoes is for the General Certificate of Secondary Education, commonly known as GCSE, which is an academically rigorous, internationally recognised qualification awarded in a specified subject. Students in secondary education in England, Wales and Northern Ireland generally take a number of subjects at GCSE over 2 years or 3 years, depending on their school. In a research project performed by Benjamin Hennig and Danny Dorling, which made use of average GCSE results, it has been found that there is a marked variation among GCSE results in different boroughs across London. It has been found that results tend to be at the bottom of these rankings in the eastern part of London, in Lewisham, and up through the boroughs of Haringey and Enfield. But it is important to note that there are also enclaves of low scores almost everywhere. Areas with high scores, on the other hand, are scattered around several boroughs in London. They tend to be more common in the outer boroughs, but also in much of Kensington and Chelsea, and the southern end of Westminster. Health inequalities. As varied as GCSE results across different boroughs in London, health inequalities are also rampant, as characterised by the difference between chances of citizens dying from the same particular disease. The data released by the Office of National Statistics at the behest of the Clean Air in London show, for instance, that females in Greenwich, in the southeastern part of London, were nearly 4 times more likely to die of dementia and Alzheimer's disease than those who were from Harrow in northwest London in 2012. This equates to 61.0 compared to 17.4 per 100,000 population, while males in Tower Hamlets, East London, were more than twice as likely to die of chronic lower respiratory diseases than those in Brent, North London, in 2012. These health inequalities are caused by differences in social and economic states, which in turn have influence with regards to the behaviour and lifestyle choices of people and their risk of illness, as well as action taken to deal with illness when it occurs. Inequalities as a result of these social determinants of health, however, as with the population clusters across the globe, are not inevitable. However, employment inequalities. London is and has always been known for having plenty of international businesses, with plenty of businesses both of local and foreign origin having headquarters in London. However, there is a concern about wage inequality and employment polarisation, which is the tendency for employment to polarise into low and high skill working in the United Kingdom. Over the long term, the UK labour market has become increasingly polarised into high and low wage employment, and as a result, wage inequality has also increased. This is now seen as having harmful social consequences, such as potentially reducing social mobility. In a study by Paul Sisson in 2013, it was found that cities in the south of England have the tendency to suffer the highest levels of wage inequality and employment polarisation, while smaller cities and those that have experienced industrial decline tend to have an equal labour market. Affluence is the main driver for urban inequality. Cities with higher average wages and knowledge-based economies tend to be more unequal. In conclusion, with great wealth and progressiveness, London can overcome these problems with social equality. As the rich people become wealthier, the poor, on the other hand, become poorer. Poverty, as it is known, can lead to other problems as well. Preventative measures could include ensuring that less skilled workers can share in the gains of more well-off urban economies, to aim to ensure that low-wage workers have opportunities for promotion and advancement, which would hopefully increase their chances of having better wages in the future. A further idea is to develop wider, more concrete and definite policies that seek to increase the number of good jobs locally and take a lead in supporting the living wage campaign.